Ukrainian drones are striking Russian logistics centers with low-altitude attacks. The Wildberries marketplace is suffering increasing losses. Just in the past week, warehouses have been burning in several regions of Russia, from the Samara region to Volgograd. Russian sellers are complaining about millions in losses, the lack of compensation, and major retail chains are already reorganizing their logistics due to the threat of new attacks. How are Ukrainian drones changing the operations of Russia's largest marketplace? More on this coming up.
This is the 17th Wildberries warehouse burning on Russian territory. It is burning after being hit by Ukrainian drones in the settlement of Novosemeykino. This is the Samara region. This settlement is located almost 1,000 kilometers from the Ukrainian border. The affected warehouse covers an area of 130,000 square meters. The warehouse is only 2 years old. It is one of the largest. And after reaching full capacity, it was supposed to handle up to 120 million items. But it will no longer do so because it has burned down completely. Today, I am going out. As Robert Brovdi, call sign Magyar, explained, this very hub was a key link between the European part of Russia and Siberia. He promised that strikes on similar facilities would continue.
I wouldn't expect any purple parcels in the Urals or Siberia. Due to disruptions, the Wildberries Samara hub in Novosemeykino went out of service. It is the main logistical bridge between the European part of the Russian Federation and the dumplings with Siberians.
Over the past 7 days, Wildberries warehouses have burned down several times. So after drone strikes, the logistics hub in Ryazan caught fire. That's 500 kilometers from the Ukrainian border. The footage shows serious damage to the warehouse and thick smoke was rising over the impact site.
Well, at least there's some action.
My job burned down, but it's no big deal. I can get a job at Ozon. The company Wildberries urged customers not to come to the warehouse in Ryazan as access to it is restricted and local residents shared footage of the large-scale fire.
Wildberries is on fire again, guys.
Warehouses of the marketplace burned in Penza, Sarapul, which is in the Udmurt Republic, and in Volgograd. Ukrainian strikes on the warehouses of the Russian marketplace Wildberries have already caused billions in losses to the Russian economy, and hundreds of sellers have gone bankrupt. Even if they do receive compensation, it will be paltry sums that don't cover the losses caused by the fire.
Why won't there be compensation if you keep our goods and they burn while in your possession? You are also 100% responsible for this. So there are already natural disasters and all that. Under which article can you refuse to compensate us? Then what is this? So I wanted to take my goods out of Novosemeykino so they wouldn't burn. You won't let me take them out. Wildberries, why? Why are you doing this? The warehouse operates during the day. It's possible to take everything out.
Last week, Wildberries employees were evacuated in Udmurtia, Yekaterinburg, and near Moscow in Koledino. Meanwhile, the owner of Wildberries, Tatiana Kim, continues to insist everything is under control.
I see armchair experts on the internet discussing the protection of our facilities, air defense, and so on. Let me repeat, our warehouses are equipped with all available means of protection.
Meanwhile, Russian sellers are counting their losses and complaining about their difficult fate.
Dear customers, please tell me, are we going to order from Ozon and Yandex? Should we, the sellers, post our products there? Tatiana, Tanyushka Kim, I think it's time to come to some sort of agreement.
At the same time, Russian public pages report that Ozon has started urgently moving goods from warehouses to order pickup points, prioritizing high-value items. This happened after, for the first time in the Republic of Tatarstan, Ozon's logistics center, the second largest marketplace in Russia after Wildberries, was evacuated due to the threat of attacks by Ukrainian drones. The employees were evacuated within a few minutes. It all took place in Zelenodolsk, where the Ozon and Wildberries warehouses are located next to each other. Therefore, it is unclear who the Ukrainian drones were targeting. Veronika Ivashchenko details InterTV channel United News Marathon.
A massive drone attack on occupier targets in Crimea. Around 1 o'clock in the morning, at least 2 explosions were heard in Simferopol. In Feodosia, Russian mobile fire groups tried to shoot down a drone near an oil depot. Explosions were also recorded in Kerch near Mount Mithridat, and a fire broke out at the seaport. Amid the attack, the Russian administration temporarily blocked traffic on the Crimean bridge. Despite losing operational control over the Black Sea, Russia is relying on naval aviation, mining, and missile terror from closed harbors. We will discuss the situation in the waters and countering enemy threats with the spokesperson of the naval forces of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, Dmytro Pletenchuk. Mr. Dmytro, welcome.
Mr. Alexei, good morning. Greetings to the studio and the viewers.
You have repeatedly noted that Russian ships are essentially confined to their harbors and even launch caliber missiles directly from their bases, afraid to venture into open waters. Can we say that Ukraine has finally deprived the Black Sea Fleet of the Russian Federation of operational control over the Black Sea? And what is the current situation in the waters now?
As for operational control, in fact, they believe that they are exercising it. But if we look exclusively at the situation with going out to sea, then yes, they are absent. Of course, the Sea of Azov is now completely out of the question. As for the Black Sea, it's basically the same situation. Last month, there were 3 deployments, and first of all, they all took place directly from the harbors, as you mentioned. But yes, aviation is present. Of course, this presents a very significant problem for everyone involved, because in this specific way, they will at least possess the full ability to monitor the entire situation closely. And naturally, this makes the surrounding sea much more dangerous for everyone, including for us and our allies. So you could say that this kind of parity has been maintained for quite some time now. But the very fact that the Black Sea Fleet cannot use its ships and boats is also very significant.
So, in fact, Russia, having an advantage in aviation, has shifted to targeted strikes with missiles and drones against port infrastructure and civilian vessels in our corridor. What means and methods of protection do the Navy and the Air Force have to reliably secure the skies over maritime trade routes? Or are such means still unavailable?
The fact is, the main challenge, of course, remains ballistic missiles. This is no secret. As for the other means, yes, here it comes down to both the quantity and quality of resources and, of course, the experience gained. Because we had not previously seen such a massive use of Shahed drones launched in this way, but in any case, they are also not something that is completely impossible to stop. There have been shoot downs of this type of drone as well. And of course, if we increase, for example, our own capabilities, which is, of course, very difficult because we are limited in our resources, at some point, perhaps we will return to this parity. But right now, they are reducing the number of conventional drones used and are actually increasing the number of jet-powered drones. That is, the Russians are now primarily betting on them. However, there are so many components of Ukraine's defense and security forces at work here. The Air Force is constantly operating in the south, and this is actually noticeable in the waters as well. We are the first to encounter them. Army aviation units are also frequently observed operating in the sky above. Of course, as always, they try to heavily rely on their superior numbers. But in any case, I truly hope that at some point in the future, we will also finally reach a state of parity.
And speaking of Crimea, do the Russians still have any possibility at all to repair or service their fleet in Sevastopol? Or is all the equipment already fleeing to Novorossiysk for good?
As for repairs, the facilities themselves do exist in Crimea, but of course the Russians do not dare to go to Crimea to repair anything, because by now they have already had experience with how such repairs tend to end. They end with the final touches being added to these repairs by the naval forces and in general the armed forces of Ukraine. So basically, yes, they periodically move them around the base there so that they don't get finished off. This is a common practice. Even in Novorossiysk, there are some facilities available for carrying out repairs. But this is very, very risky because then you turn the ship into a stationary target. So in reality, no one even does this there.
If we talk about the grain corridor, well, the Black Sea corridor, how is mine countermeasure work organized along the corridor now? And how effectively is the joint initiative for mine safety in the Black Sea functioning with the participation of NATO neighboring countries, Turkey, Romania, and Bulgaria?
All our neighbors are facing the consequences of this war, and as a result, they are constantly forced to carry out mine countermeasure activities. Unfortunately, this is connected not only to Russian aggression, but also to the consequences of the Second World War in particular. In the same way, we are constantly carrying out mine countermeasure activities in areas where navigation is directly taking place. That is, these are the approach channels to the ports, the key fronts, the anchorage areas, all those locations that we need to secure first and foremost. All of this is being carried out quite successfully by both us and our partners. In fact, the number of such cases related to mines over this entire period can literally be counted on the fingers of one hand.
And for patrolling coastal zones, the Russians are deploying boats of the Raptor and Grakonok types. And how actively are our naval drones and aviation neutralizing, so to speak, this small but dangerous enemy fleet?
Well, as a rule, they come into the sights of our strike assets when they carry out rotation activities on the occupied spits using their boat fleet. They get caught there from time to time. Sometimes even on the way, they change their minds about us and for some reason turn back. But of course, such targets are not really comparable in value to naval drones. Recently, there was another strike by our colleagues, as far as I remember, from the UBS on one of these boats in Crimea directly. Furthermore, they also possess a significant amount of practical value as effective strategic instruments for actively patrolling and effectively securing these vast territorial waters. At the moment, the Russians are not using any other means at all. So it seems to me that this is more of a matter of specific situational circumstances. When they emerge and finally come into clear view, then immediately and accordingly, they are destroyed or hit. This is because there are other targets right now that are equally significant and no less relevant at this very moment. And if we talk about Crimea, most of these are already located directly on the territory of temporarily occupied Crimea.
Mr. Dmytro, thank you very much for your time. This was Dmytro Pletenchuk, spokesperson for the Naval Forces of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. Thank you and have a great day if possible.
Likewise.